and welcome to today's episode of For the Joy Missionary Show. I am so happy to be here with you today and to share my conversation with our next guest. Her name is Mayra Cordero, and she is the founder of the Happy Hours, which is an organization that believes that sustainability and happiness should be accessible and available to everyone. And she's going to share with us about the mission of her company and her journey that led her to starting this. So, Mayra, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you so much, Jill, for inviting me. So happy to be here.
So, because for all of our people watching on YouTube, those of you listening to the audio podcast are missing out, but everyone watching on YouTube, I bet the first question in your mind is why you are wearing a yellow star on your head, Myra. So share that story with us, because I love it.
Yeah.
It's a good story.
I know. Let's start with that. First of all, because we all are stars and we all shine. That's for sure. So this is a reminder of that. And the second part was this morning, my son was like, I'm not putting on my socks. So I learned that the definition of spoiling a kid is doing things they can do by their own. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to help you to put half of it and then you do the other half. But he was in one of those days that like, I'm not doing it. So, you know, that many mothers probably can relate to this, but he was like almost an hour in my back, like complaining, crying, and going over that he was not doing it, he didn't want to, and all of this. And obviously my nerves start just boiling little by little. And then just reminding myself that what I was doing, it wasn't just because I couldn't just do it for him, but it was in the long run to help him show that he can do it, right? Mm-hmm. And I was just like, okay. And to a point that I said, I know you don't want to do it, but when you're ready to do it and you finish, we can play. So you let me know when you're ready. And then I just step out and start doing my own thing. He did continue going around and doing all this, pushing all the buttons that he can, right?
Yeah.
And finally he came around and said, Mom, I love you. I'm ready to play. And I'm like, oh, I was so happy and proud of him. And then we went and played stickers. And one of the stickers was a star. And then he's like, I want to give you this star, Mom. And I was like, yes, I deserve it.
Yeah.
And from the beginning, I deserve it. I deserve it. And I also wanted to keep it because it brings me joy. Just those little achievements through the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. So, Mayra, share with us more about your story and journey to starting the Happy Hours.
Yes. You know what? A 19-year-old me moved from Mexico to the States, as you can see in my lovely accent. And I was invited to a leadership class, and they said, do you want to do a project for the community? And for me, recycling was a new concept because we didn't have it back in my country, not in that way. Mm-hmm. So I said, it's so easy because you just place a blue recycling bin and then people just place what belongs in there, right? And I was like, I just do that and I'm done with my homework or project. And then I found out that it was not, that I was so naive because you get popcorn, you get diapers, you get so many other interesting things that don't belong into the recycling. But anyway, fall in love with recycling. Did it almost for a year for free as a hobby, as something that I believed. And then finally, the community college that I was, they agreed that we had to do it for all the community. And they say yes. And they asked for someone to be in charge of it. And I was just like, what about me, right? And you know what happened? They say, what if you recommend someone? And I was just like, what do you mean? Yeah, because you know the project. And I was just like, okay. Obviously, I stepped out of that meeting and I cried so much because I was so sad because I was like, I'm doing it already. What do you mean? Do you want me to find someone? But then having that's why I'm going to just step a little forward. But one of my most happy hour is rethink. I mean, stepping and rethinking why they don't want to hire, why they don't see me as a possibility. And then I saw, well, because I'm a 19-year-old asking for $50,000 to begin the recycling, I'm not studying anything related to the environment. So obviously, I'm learning the language. Obviously, I'm probably not the best. I wouldn't hire myself.
Uh-huh.
But I was in my class English 1300, and they asked us for a persuasive essay. And I said, okay, my essay was about why they should hire me.
Huh.
I'm always that person that looks for the bright side. I'm always that person that say, okay, you tell me no. Now I cannot complain about my child, right? You tell me no, but I'm going to look for ways that you tell me yes.
Yeah.
So I know where he gets it.
Absolutely.
So let me find ways that we will be a yes, right? So it was a yes. I did my job for 10 years. I was a recycling coordinator and then an environmental specialist once I graduated. And I love what I did because, it's not only about recycling, but it's all the sustainability. It makes sense to me because when I was in that journey, I was like, oh, many of us go into the dollar store because it's just $1, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, it was a new concept. And I was like, wow, this is so cheap. And buy all these things, filling up spaces, trying to fill up spaces that really is not the way. And then I start finding out, you know what? Before recycling, we should consider reduce our consumption. We should consider refuse to a point to say, you know what? I don't need it. I truly don't need it. Why am I wasting my time and money? And I noticed that I was spending less, and that money, I could use it. My husband and I went to Europe to celebrate our anniversary when we were 2 years in marriage. And I was like, many people say, I want to travel, but I don't have money. We all have very blessed to have more than what we need. So maybe taking a look at where is our money going? Where are you investing your time, your money, your resources? So I was showing people we should recycle, not only because if you're hippie or not, like I was telling you, but because it's good for our wallets. It's good for our health. That's another part that I discovered through this journey, that plastics, I was just like, I'm okay drinking from a plastic bottle because I'm going to recycle this bottle, right? Mm-hmm. And feeling okay because I was recycling. But then another kid, not on my own, but I was in a presentation. I did over 700 presentations around El Paso, Texas, and so many other workshops and events, because now I know how you feel with those events that coming along, and there's so many things that pop up. But anyway, in that presentation, a kid was like, Miss, the plastics are made out of what? And I'm like, oh, well, they come from, what do they come from, Jill? Plastics.
Yeah, I couldn't explain it, I don't think.
Well, to make it very simple, I was just like, well, he was like, what's the ingredients? And well, the main ingredient is petroleum, right? It comes from petroleum. And he's like, is that the same thing that it's gas, the gas that we put in our cars? And I'm like, well, yeah, it also comes from petroleum, right? And then he's like, if I drink that, would I get sick? And I was like, well, yes. If I drink from a container that is made out of the same, can I get sick? And I was just like, I study environmental science, and I study how many plastics, the chemicals in the plastics, can make us not necessarily sick, but it does affect our endocrine system and many areas in our bodies in the long run. It's not that you drink today and then you're sick tomorrow, but in the long run, it can affect, right? Mm-hmm. So he was so happy because he was going to tell his mom that he was sick of plastics and couldn't come to school on Monday, right? But in my case, it clicked. In my case, I was just like, why am I still drinking bottled water if I know that I have other better options? Even if I can recycle the bottle, now I know that it's downcycle, not really recycle. So I was just like, okay. And then I started losing weight by getting rid of all these plastics in my life. You know, that plastic thing that we used to cook, utensils that we used to cook, and they're all melted, right? I mean, you eating that plastic in one way or another. So there are many better options for the environment, for you, for us. And I was just like, okay. And when I lose weight, I told one of my friends who is a doctor in chemistry, and I said, you know what? I haven't done anything because I love food. That's one of my guilty pleasures. That's one of my, I'm going to confess right now, that's one of my sins that I have to work on. So I love so much food that I'm like, I'm not doing anything else with the food. So what's going on? Why am I losing weight? And then she explained me, well, you change those plastics. And by reducing plastics, you're letting your endocrine system work the way that it's supposed to work. And that's why your system is working better. And I'm like, wow. And then that brought me to the next part of it, that I became a mom and I wanted to be there for my son. So even though I love my job, I love to teach people about sustainability, I said, you know what? I want to focus on him and just on him these few years because I know they're basics, right? So I did it, but it took me to a dark place, you know? Even though being a mother is the most wonderful gift that God can give you, it's also one of the hardest things, I believe. It's a job, a 24/7 job. And my son didn't like to sleep, so it was harder. And I was such in a dark place in a moment because I didn't sleep, because of the hormone change. That's another thing. If mothers are listening right now, I wish they hear this, please, ladies. When you have a boy, your hormone, your testosterone, just high, so high, because it needs that testosterone for the boy. But then you have the boy and you still have those levels of testosterone in your body through 6 months, through a year. So you feel, if you had a boy, you feel like you want to hit whoever comes your way and doesn't agree with you because your levels are so high. And you feel like you're not yourself. That was my case. I was like, why do I see my husband like I really didn't even want to see him? I was like, no, right?
Yeah.
But I wish someone would tell me back then, you know, this is what's happening with your hormones. Your hormones are just going back into new levels. I was always a happy person and a person that never felt like really angry before. And now I felt that. So I was like, what's going on? And then I get to a point that I say, God, just help me out because I don't know what's happening. And I need to breathe. And well, as always, it's when you feel God most in your life and the love. And he started opening so many doors. I'm a scientist, so I like, you tell me step 1, 2, and 3 that I can follow. And then give me a proven result, right? And I got that. I got that from God, from believing in him, from trusting in him. And I got that from finding other people who have been through the same and who know techniques and tools to help you get out of that and enjoy the happiness, the joy that we all are meant to do. And I was just like, yes. And then the happy, I know it took me so long, but then the happy hours were born because I was just like, it is the happy hours about sustainability, reducing, refusing, and everything. But before that, before we get into that conversation, we have to have the conversation of your happiness, about recharging yourself, reprogram your brain, and rethink our ways. Not just go with the flow or going on pilot, but actually stop and what is your life? What are you here for? Obviously, for those questions, you have to sleep first. So that's why the happy hour of recharge is so important. So I answered your question in a long way. I'm sorry.
No, that's wonderful because I love your story of getting to this point. And I love that it was through the sustainability road, because I think that's not a story I've heard of anyone having before, but like you said, it makes so much sense because it really is drawing us into what is the way that we were really created to essentially function.
Right.
And I think that that's such a clear jumping off point. And you've mentioned some of them, but tell us exactly what all of the R's that you talk about in the happy R's are.
Well, when they say that you got your new car and then you start seeing that car everywhere, like everybody has that car. Well, that happened to me when I started the happy hours to help people to enjoy happiness and sustainability. Now I start seeing R's everywhere. But the main ones, the ones that we start for my workshops and my coaching is, first of all, like I said, recharge. Because that one, it was so hard to understand in my case. When you fly and they tell you to put on your mask before helping others, I'm always the person that loves to give, because I know that the more I give, the more I receive. And it is true. But it is true also that you have to give to yourself. And usually we don't take that time. So I was just like, when they say, put on your mask, I would say, that's crazy. You help others first and then you help yourself. But then as a mom, I discovered that you're like, in order to keep the calm that I was this morning, I had to fill up my cup first.
Yeah.
So I fill up my cup first, and then I can serve better. So I recharge. And a simple question for the people in here is, how do you recharge? Well, what is it that you love to do? What is it that you really, really love to do, and that you probably haven't done it in months or years? I know I talked to a lady that said, I love to travel. And I know it's hard in this time. But when I asked her, when was the last time that you traveled? And she said, 7 years ago. And I'm like, So that's your answer right there. As a moms, as women, even men, I know that we are such in this wheel of running and running and running that we don't take the time to, stop. And recharge. What do I love to do? Even reading a book, even watching us, hearing us right now. If that's what you love, well, take advantage of it and really just taste it, right? Really just get the pleasure out of it. And that's the first R. You have homework. And then the next R is, well, now let's rethink. Now that you're charged, let's rethink. Something that you're doing and it's not bringing you the joy that it should. Because, as moms, we tend to be in this role of just following what we were taught. Yeah. There's this joke that I love, that this girl is cooking, and then the husband says, why do you always cut the front and the back of the pig? And then she's like, well, my mother used to do it like that, right? And then they go and ask the mom, and like, why do you cut the front and the back of the part of the pig? And then she's like, well, your grandma used to do it like that. They go with the grandma, and then the grandma is like, well, because my oven was so small that I could only feed it if I cut the front and the back. So it's just like, how many things are we just doing that it doesn't make sense right now, but we're just been following, and that doesn't mean that we have to go against but just rethink, are you doing it for the right reasons? Or are you just following patterns that are not working for you? So that rethink part. And then the next one is the reprogram your brain, because there's a space between knowing what you have to do and actually doing it, right? We are so good at, I want to lose weight. And Google it. Well, do exercise, eat better, and just with those two, you are enough. And then you're like, oh, that's true. Exercise and eat better. Oh, and drink water. Okay. And then you close your phone, and then you sit down, turn on the TV, and watch Netflix and drink and eat chips and Coke, right? So it's like, what do you have to do? Well, there's simple ways to reprogram our brain. One of the tools that I love is one of Mel Robbins. And I don't know if you have heard, but her 5-second rule.
Mm-mm.
5-second rule. Our brain, it's built the way that our brain was built. I know God is so wonderful, but it's in a way to protect us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whatever change we want to make, our brain right away is going to put like, no, like a barrel, because he wants to protect us out of change, because it's not something that you don't know. So let's protect. So what are we going to do? Well, we need to get our brain to move that barrel. And that barrel comes from the back of your head. The back of your head is the one that is, I love the way Mel say it, because Mel say it that we work sometimes as a washing machine. We just go around and around and around things, right?
Yeah.
You're like,
absolutely.
I want to do this, I want to do this, or why did he tell me this? Why did he tell me this? And it's not getting you anywhere, right? So you have to cut the pattern. And how do you cut it? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Because that helps you to move to the front, to your star of your brain, and help you to move out of that washing machine. And that, I mean, it's counting and then acting. Right away after you count and you got out your washer, then you physically move from where you are and do something else. So you replace that old habit with a new one. So I know it sometimes it gets a little bit tricky. I would love to, whoever is thinking about like, this sounds interesting, I would love to get in contact with you guys and just keep the conversation going, because it is simple. It is simple. That's what the happy hours is all about, simplicity, because we don't want to make it harder than as it is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So then when you are leading people through this, what does that look like? Is it typically one-on-one with people, or is it, what kind of format do you lead people through?
So I love one-on-one, because at the end of the day, it's connections, right? For me, what I really love is that connection. Even through now the internet, having these conversations, it just fills up my heart, because I can see that immediately reaction. I can see that it works. But I also do workshops for many people, I have that experience and I did over 700 workshops for sustainability, teaching everybody, all ages, from young kids, who are the ones who teach me the most also to older people, because for me, coaching and doing these workshops, it's growing together. It's having that opportunity to grow together and to see how we can just shine our happiness to everybody and share it with the rest of the world. So that's how the services that I provide, either through workshops or through coaching one-on-one.
That is awesome. So in leading people through these, you are mostly having people really examine their interior life, it sounds like.
Yes. And once we finish with looking at your life, looking how can you just bring out that happiness, because I think we all have it inside. You just have to fire up, like you just have to live it and enjoy it. And then the next step is my love, sustainability. It was war. I know my accent. I know some of you are starting to enjoy it and some of you are starting like, this is weird. But I have for everybody, right? So I know that Pope Francis just put a quote that I loved, that it says, in order for us to fix our home, the planet, we have to fix ourselves first. Don't quote me on each word, but that was his main message, right?
Yeah.
So once that you are feeling that happiness, now let's move into the next step, sustainability. And the next step, for example, we can do an exercise with the art of reducing. I know you have probably in there something that you haven't used in 6 months. Can you find that, Jill? Yes.
Oh, well, this is my art studio. So there's a lot of stuff that doesn't get used very often because, sometimes I'll go a long time between things, but I'll see if I can lay my hands on something quickly here. Well, I have not used this particular surge protector in over 6 months.
See, so that part of reducing, and it's there, it's taking you space. It's taking you space, right? And maybe someone can use it if you're really not going to use it. Or maybe you can assign a place for that, a place that you know that when you need it, you'll find it. Mm-hmm. Because what happens, I love that art of reducing, because reducing, that doesn't mean unhappiness. A lot of people relate, more is better, less is worse.
Right.
And no, the other part of my journey is that in the last 4 years, we have lived in 10 homes, 5 cities, 2 countries. So obviously that has bring my sustainability to another level. I don't, if you have heard about minimalist, is having less, right? Mm-hmm. But for us, it's not just having less, it's enjoying more. How do you enjoy more? Because, for example, in your closet, women, we tend to have like our closet full and we only wear 20% of our closet. Uh-huh. And the rest of it has tags, or is to, when you put it on, it doesn't bring that joy. Mm-hmm. And it's not about just having fancy dresses. That sweatshirt can bring you as much joy as that dress. Mm-hmm. But actually, that would be a wonderful homework for everybody that is listening to us right now. Just go into your closet and start trying out those clothes. Mm-hmm. And if they really, not bringing that happiness, let it go. Mm-hmm. Take it to Goodwill, take it to someone that can really help it. Mm-hmm. I know that in my case, I used to buy a lot of clothes because in the States, it's so cheap. Yeah. It's so cheap. It's on sale. So I need to get it. Well, apply the happy hour, rethink. Because it's on sale, do you really need it? And then once you have it, sometimes we have it and it's so hard for us to let it go. How to let it go? Because you're like, I paid $20 for it and I haven't wear it and I'm going to lose weight and then I'm going to wear it. I don't know. Not that I'm giving up on your hopes, but probably if you really want to lose weight, you're going to do it. But when you do, you're probably not going to be like the style that you like. We as Christians are called to become our better version every day. And therefore, you are not the same person as 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Is the clothes that you have representing the person that you are right now? Is the clothes that you have, the jewelry that you have, is it showing off as the person that you are right now?
Yeah. That's a really, really good question, because I've heard obviously several times prior to people talking about do your clothes really bring you joy? Marie Kondo and things like that and minimalism. And, but thinking about, are you still that person? And do you still want to portray yourself in the same way is something that has me rethinking some of my pre-baby clothes that I'm hanging on to for when I'm done and hopefully I'm back to the size that I was.
Yes. Yes, because for me, for example, the colors. I noticed that I was getting in really dark colors when I was in dark place. And now I'm like, no, I like bright colors. Yeah. I enjoy bright colors. So now I'm getting into those bright colors. And that doesn't mean that you have to change your clothes every year, right? But to be conscious about it and to be conscious the next time that you buy things, that's the next step. Once you're in the store, taking the time to really, I know, for example, I can give you the example of this dress. Like this dress, I saw it and I love the colors, but I didn't like the cleavage. I'm not so crazy about big cleavage, but I'm just going to put a little pin and then it will work out and it's on sale. So I'm getting it. Now, I bought it a few years back. Today that I put it on, I was like, I don't like that cleavage. And even with the pin, like, I don't like that cleavage. So here, I mean, we have our little voice. We have that little voice, I think I always say like the little angel that is always taking care of you. And that other one that you should just lower the volume a little bit more. But that little voice that is taking care of you, it's always taking care of you. And if you hear that little voice for that dress, for that person, for that situation, you should higher the volume and say, I mean, just listen, right? Listen. And because now, I mean, I'm wearing it, but I'm conscious that I don't like it that way. Yeah. And that is, for me, I feel like also it's too short in the bottom. But why did I buy it? Because it was on sale, because I like the color. Why do we just, and I want to say it in a nice way, but why do we like just give up? Yeah. Like, why do we give up and think that we're not going to find something that we truly love? And with that, I mean the dress, the man, whatever it is in your life. Why do we just like, in a way, just like, well, this is the best that I can do? No, we are called to become the better, best version. So no, you can always find better and you can always become better. So looking to achieve that, always with the content and happiness that you're doing the best that you can.
That is such a beautiful framing. And I think it reflects so much how much we struggle with trust, because we're like, well, I don't know if God's going to come through in the future. And this is in front of me right now. So let's jump on that opportunity because I don't know what's coming and I don't maybe trust that there is going to be something better, especially not necessarily with dresses and things like that, but you know, with like the person you're going to marry and you know, the city and the job and things like that, for sure.
Yeah. And even with the things that we have, you know why it's so hard for people to let go of the things? Because they don't trust in God. They don't trust that you're gonna have enough in the future.
Yeah.
That's the true. I found out that in my case, like moving out of those 10 houses, sometimes I will have things packed and never open that box from one house to the other one. And finally, like in the third house, that I would open the box and see what it is. And I'm thinking, well, but what if, because I love glass, right? So that's one of my things, that I have everything in glass. And then what if where I go, I don't find glass? Really? I mean, you would really not find glass containers. I mean, but then something that for me helped me to just completely shift my mind was like that part of the scripture where they said, if I take care of the birds, why wouldn't I care about you, that you're my love's son or daughter? Yeah. And I'm like, I do get those chills that it's just like, it's true. Yeah. That doesn't mean obviously that you're going to give away everything that you have in your house.
Right.
But it is true that it helps you to just, if I don't need it, if I don't use it, if it's not bringing me joy, there it is. Somebody can enjoy it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being with me today, Mayra. It's been just a joy to talk to you and hear your story. And you're also hilarious.
Thank you. I enjoyed your time together too.